for the Clippers. And here are my NBA game predictions of January 23rd of 2022. Tonight there's 11 games. I'll be going over the spreads and over-unders, and I got these from FanDuel. For the Clippers at the Knicks, I will be going with the Clippers +4. I think the Clippers match up really well against the Knicks. I think they have the tools to slow down Randle, and he's also been playing not great, to put it lightly, and the Knicks offense kind of runs through him. So if he's struggling, the Knicks offense is going to struggle, and I think the Clippers will do a good job at that. Also, they beat the Sixers last game, which that's a feat in itself. So I think the Clippers +4. I think the Clippers will probably win this game, but I think +4, as the spread states, I think the Clippers will be able to cover that. I will be going under 207, as I think the Clippers, so there's no main scorer for them right now, saying that they'll have a high-scoring game. I usually won't bet on that currently, but the Knicks scoring a lot, that's something I can't bet on. So I'm going to say the Knicks will struggle with scoring in general this game, hence the under 207. For Boston at the Wizards, I'll be going with Washington -1. Personally, this is like a 50-50 toss-up game. Both teams have a similar 500 record, and this game can go either way. I think this should be kind of a playoff atmosphere game for these two teams. I just will give the slight advantage towards Washington for this game, as they are playing at home, so that should give them a slight advantage overall. And then Boston doesn't have Marcus Smart, but personally, I would not bet on this game. I wouldn't even bet on the winner nor the over-under, because this game could be very high-scoring, as it could go back and forth like basket, or just be like one of those games once it hits the fourth quarter, both teams just snap into defensive mode. It's just one of those defensive games. But I think saying over 218 is what I would go with, as I think I'd lean towards more offensive game between these two, but it should be a fun game to watch though. For the Bulls at the Magic, I'll be going with Chicago -3.5. I think even after losing Caruso, I think the Bulls between DeRozan and Vucevic, that should be enough to beat the Magic. And also, Vucevic will be playing back at Orlando. I think he should have a good game playing against his former team, as it was put on a good showing for them. So I'll be leaning towards Chicago -3.5. I will be going under 216 though, as I think Chicago will be able to slow down the Magic a lot, and I think the Bulls in general, since their offense will have to flow through Vucevic and DeRozan, they don't have their main facilitators out there in Levine. But I think the Bulls will also have a hard time scoring the ball. I think they will break 100 points, but I think this game shouldn't go over 216. For Portland at Toronto, I'll be with Toronto -7.5. The way that I look at these two teams, I kind of view Toronto as the better version of Portland, so I will lean towards Toronto winning the game in general. But I don't have too much faith in Portland, as for them to stay in the game, like Simons, McCollum, and Nurkic have to have good games. So in that case, I'll just lean towards Toronto having a better game than that, as Toronto can rely on Van Vliet, Siakam, Barnes. They just have more people that they can rely on, rather than Portland, who are a little bit more consistent overall. I will be going over 214.5, as I think that Portland will be able to show up this game. Like last game, they beat Boston. I think they'll carry that momentum against Toronto. I mean, they will have a good offensive game, but I think overall Toronto will figure out Portland, a little better coached than them. I think Toronto's offense will actually do well against Portland's defense, as Toronto should win and be over 214.5. For the Lakers at the Heat, we'll be going with Miami -4. The Lakers, I can't bet with the Lakers at all, and with a spread of 4, I just have to take the Heat. I think the Heat, between Butler and having Bam on the floor and all the three-point shooting, the Lakers have to respect that three-point shooting, and Lakers play a fast pace. I don't know why, but they play one of the fastest paces in the league, and that's going to allow a lot of three-point shooting on both sides, but Heat have better shooters than the Lakers, so I think the Heat will take advantage of that. I will lean towards over 216.5, as the Lakers defense, not the greatest in the world, and Miami, they'll be able to slow down the Lakers, but I think overall this will stay pretty close, as LeBron will probably forcibly keep this game close one way or another, as this will likely go over 216.5 due to like the three-point shooting probably by both teams. For the Hawks at Charlotte, I will be going with Charlotte -3. If Charlotte can contain Trae Young, as I think between LaMelo Ball, Kelly Oubre, I think they have enough people that they can throw at Trae Young to slow him down, as the offense has to go through him. And as long as you can contain him, the Hawks offense will struggle unless like someone steps up to the plate. But if you just throw enough people at him, Charlotte should win the game. And if this does become a shootout, as long as you just slow down Trae Young, like Charlotte should come out with a win. It will be going under 236, as if I'm the Charlotte, like that's my game plan. It's like if I can slow down Trae Young, that really slow down the Atlanta offense. I'll keep them below like 110, 105. And as long as Charlotte just shows up and hits their shots, like they'll probably get like between like 115, 122, somewhere in there. And so it'll probably be like over 226. Like that's probably more safer than going with the spreads of like the 236, but I'll lean towards the under 236.5. For the Sixers at the Spurs, I'll go with Philadelphia -1.5. Coming off that 1-point loss against the Clippers, I think the Sixers want to redeem themselves and beat the Spurs if I were them. Embiid is playing, and they just keep on wasting his monster performances, and I expect him to have another one. Will he score 40 again, or like close to 40? Well, obviously it's maybe, but I think it'll be more into the tune of 32, as I think the role players need to step up and make their shots, not put all this pressure on Embiid to just do all the work for them. As if the role players step up for the Sixers, this should be a blowout in their favor. But the Spurs, if they just play fast and just keep themselves in the game, like the Sixers will just destroy themselves, as if you double team Embiid, that forces the other shooters on the Sixers to step up. It will go under 222.5, as I think the Sixers defense can slow down the Spurs, and if the role players they don't step up, it will go under. But in general, the Sixers games happen mostly around like the 220 mark, like 218 to like 226 somewhere there, but I will lean towards under 222.5 this game. For Grizzlies at the Mavericks, I'll be going with Grizzlies +3.5. Even with all the injuries for the Grizzlies, I just have a hard time betting against them like the past month and a half, as they seem to just cover the spreads or just win. And for +3.5, why wouldn't you take them, as that gives them like the possibility to lose by 3, but I think they'll figure out a way to win. They have enough tools, enough like high energy players to slow down, like Luka could cover the 3-point shooting. That'll be tough for the Mavericks to like run their offense, and then Ja Morant, I think the Mavericks will have a way to slow him down, but I think Morant will still mostly have his way this game. But I will be leaning towards under 217, as the Mavericks they do have a good defense. They do play a slower pace, so they generally have more lower scoring games. I think Memphis will be affected by this because they don't have Bane. He's been playing well of late. Adams might be out, so that kind of weakens their interior defense. But I think Mavericks overall will slow down the Grizzlies, and the Grizzlies offense will be slowed down, but under 217. And Memphis should stay in this game, but I think overall be a very close game. For the Pistons at the Nuggets, We're going with Detroit plus 11.5. I think Detroit, a lot of their spreads have been like double digits for them, and they've been losing by double digits, so it's like the spreads have been pretty close for them. But against Denver, yeah, it's like Jokic will get his stats. Like that shouldn't be a problem. But beating Detroit by 11.5, I don't know. That's a little bit too far of a stretch for me. Like I think Denver will still win overall. They are playing at home, and they do have like one of the best players on their team that like on the floor at any given moment. But I think Detroit will stay within this range. I will be going under 217, as I think Detroit has enough energy to just like contain the rest of the Denver offense, but I don't expect Detroit to score a lot on their end as well, so I'll be leaning towards under 217. For Brooklyn at Minnesota, we went with Minnesota -2. I just have a hard time betting with Brooklyn, as I don't always expect what team to show up, but I know Minnesota's just going to bring the energy as always, so it's easier to bet with Minnesota, as they have been covering their spreads over the past month and just winning games or keeping the games close. So I will be going with the Minnesota spread. I will be going under 238.5, as even though Minnesota and Brooklyn have very high scoring games, I just think 238.5, that's just a very high spread, and I see it more likely going under, as if pretty much just one team has to play defense or get cold, and I see that more likely than both teams being hot and playing non-defense. So I think one team will go cold, and will be difficult to cover that under two. Well, the over 238.5, and one team is cold, so be going under 238.5. For the Jazz at the Warriors, I'll be with Warriors -4, as after that win against the Rockets, I think they'll keep them boosted. But they're playing against a better opponent in the Jazz, but Jazz are also iffy how they've been playing too, so they also play the Suns the next night, so it's like how do the Jazz want to play this out? Like, do they play hard against the Warriors and try and win and just lose tomorrow, or do they just cut their losses early if they're down big and just save their energy against the Phoenix? So in that case, I think the Jazz are just in a lose-lose, so I'll just be leaning towards the Warriors -4, as I think the Warriors will come out with a win. They're also playing in Oakland, so that's just a hard place to win for any team. I will be going over 260.5, as I don't think the Jazz's defense will have a great effect on the Warriors' offense. But the Warriors' defense will affect the Jazz, but the Jazz can score a lot and get hot. But I think overall, this will go over 260.5, but more likely, like it'll be in the range of like 208 to like 224, like somewhere in there. Thank you for watching. Comment any of your thoughts on your spreads and predictions. Once again, thanks for watching.